Chapter 614. Since Miss Nalan is so sincere, I naturally have to show my sincerity as well. Ning Xiangyun slightly narrowed her eyes as she looked at Nalan Yu and said, I heard that Miss Nalan was entangled with Fu Ruoqing a long time ago. Now that Fu Ruoqing has fallen into the cold palace, won't Miss Nalan go and see your old friend? Since Imperial concubine Xiang said this miss really wants to go and see her. Nalan Yu's eyes slightly flashed as a light appeared in her eyes. If it wasn't for Fu Ruoqing's interference, perhaps she would have already married Xiao Chen a long time ago. The reason for this was because of Fu Ruoqing. The high and mighty Grand Tutor's first daughter had now become an abandoned concubine of the Cold Palace. No matter what, she had to go and greet her, right? In the desolate Cold Palace, there was a bleak atmosphere. No one took care of the fallen leaves on the ground and it was frighteningly quiet. The only lamp in the Cold Palace was emitting a weak light. On a shabby soft couch, Fu Ruoqing's face was slightly pale as she sat on the couch with her head slightly propped up. The current Fu Ruoqing didn't have the appearance of being dressed in gold and silver. Her smiling face was incomparably thin and she was wearing plain old clothes. She was holding a cup of warm tea and drinking it with her head lowered. A light breeze blew and the candlelight flickered. Fu Ruoqing's hand that was holding the teacup slightly tightened as she raised her head to look. The black-clothed figure that was half hidden in the darkness stood there silently. A pair of indifferent eyes filled with death chi looked at Fu Ruoqing. The sound of light footsteps came from behind the man in black and a graceful figure slowly stood under the candlelight. The familiar face caused Fu Ruoqing to clench her fists tightly. Her eyes widened slightly as she stared at the person in front of her with some fear. Nalan Yu? Fu Ruoqing called out with some uncertainty. Fu Ruoqing, long time no see. Nalan Yu stopped and the corner of her mouth curled up as she looked at Fu Ruoqing. She narrowed her seductive eyes as she sized Fu Ruoqing up and said, After not seeing you for so many years, you've already become like this? How laughable. You really didn't die. Fu Ruoqing slowly sat up straight as she looked at Nalan Yu with cold eyes and said, I knew it would be you. What? Are you here today to mock me? Don't forget that I couldn't marry Xiao Chen, and neither can you. I've never done anything wrong to Xiao Chen. You, on the other hand, are filthy and disgusting. Fu Ruoqing's face was filled with disgust as she looked at Nalan Yu. Nalan Yu's expression suddenly changed when she heard this. Her eyes flashed with a ruthless light. Her figure flashed and she appeared in front of Fu Ruoqing. She raised her hand and ruthlessly slapped Fu Ruoqing's face. Bitch, your mouth is getting more and more powerful. Nalan Yu looked at Fu Ruoqing who had fallen to the side, her eyes filled with ruthlessness. What? Did I hit the nail on the head? Are you angry from embarrassment? Fu Ruoqing didn't care at all as she wiped the blood from her mouth. Her eyes were still filled with disgust as she looked at Nalan Yu and said, I know what you want to do. Do you think you can still obtain Xiao Chen's heart? I can't obtain it, but I'm afraid you won't be able to see it. Nalan Yu's face was filled with coldness as she looked at Fu Ruoqing and said, Back then, you obstructed me. This debt should be repaid. Shadow, dig out her eyes. I can't kill you, but I can cripple you. Chapter 615. Even if I'm blind and deaf, what can you do? You still can't kill me. Fu Ruoqing laughed indifferently. That attitude made Nalan Yu extremely angry. Hurry up and do it. Nalan Yu coldly shouted. Ing Yi, who was standing behind her, respectfully replied. He raised his hand and pulled out the dagger at his waist before silently walking towards Fu Ruoqing. Fu Ruoqing opened her eyes and quietly watched the shadow approach. In this short moment, Fu Ruoqing did not feel afraid. Instead, she was filled with endless sorrow. After spending so many days in the cold palace, her sorrow and anger had all been worn away. It turned out that from the beginning to the end, it was all wishful thinking on her part. It was wishful thinking on her part to fall in love with him, and it was wishful thinking on her part to do anything for him. In this world, it wasn't as if you would receive something in return for what you did for him. She was wrong. She had let down Xiao Chen, who had done everything he could to treat her well. She had thrown her heart to Xiao Chen, who did not love her at all. She was wrong. In the darkness of the night, a mournful scream exploded in the cold palace. However, no one heard it. Since it was the cold palace, how could there be anyone else in the palace? She was already someone who had been abandoned. Who would care about her? Even if she was a high and mighty imperial concubine just a second ago, she could not compare to the passing of time. Xiao Chen and Jing Yu did not know what was happening in the imperial city. They were far away in the forest outside the imperial city. At this moment, they were fleeing for their lives. Before they even left the Jade Pass, they had already been surrounded and killed dozens of times. The number of people they had brought with them was also decreasing. Master, they didn't chase us. In the forest, Jing Yu slept tiredly on top of Yin Jian's body. The two gray wolves' large tails gently covered Jing Yu's body. Xiao Chen stood in the distance while Xing Yi reported the situation to Xiao Chen. Has the Punishment Alliance issued a summons? In the darkness of the night, Xiao Chen looked into the depths of the forest and asked. They have already issued a summons. Everyone is to gather in the Roman forest. Xing Yi bowed and replied. The troops that should be mobilized should also be mobilized. Xiao Chen indifferently opened his mouth and said, Everything can be decided after we wait for the Roman forest. I'm afraid that Royal Brother won't let us go so easily. Master? Xing Yi's expression also became serious. Xiao Chen was silent for a moment and didn't say anything. He raised his hand to signal Xing Yi to withdraw from the night watch and turned to walk towards Jing Yu. After running for several nights, Jing Yu was very tired and had already fallen asleep. Xiao Chen's approach alerted the two gray wolves. Their opened eyes glowed with a vigilant green light. The two gray wolves moved at the same time. When they saw that it was Xiao Chen, they slightly snorted. Yin Feng stood up and made space for Xiao Chen to lie down. Xiao Chen glanced at Yin Feng and gently reached out to Jing Yu into his embrace. Jing Yu moved her body. In her sleep, she vaguely felt the familiar warmth and smell. She snuggled into Xiao Chen's embrace and went back to sleep contentedly. Xiao Chen gently kissed the top of Jing Yu's head and closed his eyes. No matter how difficult the journey was, if he could hold you in his embrace, what was there to be afraid of no matter how difficult the wind and rain was? The first rays of the morning sun rose from the horizon and everyone slowly woke up from their dreams. Jing Yu opened her eyes amidst a commotion. What do you mean by this? You hugged me and you still don't admit it. Early in the morning, it was noisy. Chapter 616. Jing Yu furrowed her brows and sat up while rubbing her sleepy eyes. Xiao Chen also furrowed his brows as he sat up and looked into the distance. Shangguan Linglan glared fiercely at Xing Er and shouted angrily, Tell me, did you hug me? I'll tell you. Why don't you admit it? Xing Er stood there with a dark face and didn't say anything. Let this lady tell you. I'm not the kind of person who will rely on you. Don't even think about it. Shangguan Linglan's face was full of anger as she angrily threw these words at Xing Er. Then she flung her sleeves and left. Jing Yu, Xiao Chen, and the others who heard this were completely confused. You really disturbed my sleep. Qing Gu rubbed his head and stood up. He patted Xing Er's shoulder sympathetically and walked to the side to tidy up his things. What's going on? Jing Yu was completely confused as she looked at Xiao Chen and asked in a daze. I don't know. Xiao Chen shook his head and stood up. Since you've rested enough, let's pack up and set off. I'm afraid that once we leave Jade Gate Pass, it will be even more difficult to move. Jing Yu also stood up and stretched. She said faintly, there are more and more people gathering towards the Tokyo. This is really fun. Yin Jian, Yin Feng, let's go find something to eat. Jing Yu casually threw out these words and called for Yin Jian and Yin Feng to head into the forest. Xing Er. Xiao Chen watched Jing Yu leave and called out to Xing Er with a slight frown. Xing Er stood in front of Xiao Chen with his head lowered. What's going on? Xing Er naturally knew what Xiao Chen was asking about. Naturally, it was the scene that had just happened between him and Shangguan Linglan. Xing Er hesitated for a moment before saying, She was the one who hugged me. Xiao Chen's expression turned slightly strange. He didn't need to think to know that after traveling for so many days, She had fallen asleep immediately last night. In addition to the cold spring weather in the wilderness, Shangguan Linglong had snuggled into Xing Er's arms and woken up early in the morning. Very well, that makes perfect sense. However, Xing Er had a cold face and would never explain himself, so he made a fool of himself. Jing Yu had completely given up on the sedan chair and everyone was riding horses. They didn't go into the city because they definitely couldn't leave the city. They could only take the longer route and pass through the forest to save the trouble. Everyone quickly rode towards the Jade Pass. The inn was right in front of them. To leave the Tokyo, they had to pass through the Jade Pass. On the way to the Jade Pass, there was only one inn. It was their resting place for the night. It's not good to have too many people. Let's go down the mountain in batches and check in. Don't be seen through. Xiao Chen pursed his lips and looked at everyone as he spoke. Yes. Everyone lowered their heads and agreed. In the next few hours, they went down the mountain in batches and checked in at the inn with different identities. When the sky was dark, Xiao Chen and Jing Yu went down the mountain and headed towards the inn. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen held long swords in their hands and acted like chivalrous men. Jing Yu wore a bamboo hat to cover her face while Xiao Chen wore a mask to cover his face. Although there were no enemies in the inn, the two of them were still careful. Phew, how long has it been since I slept on a bed? Jing Yu rubbed her body vigorously and lay on the bed contentedly. Chapter 617. Xiao Chen. Jing Yu didn't dare to move. Just the thought of Xiao Chen's wolf-like appearance was enough to make her waist weak. Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu and smiled faintly. He knew that now wasn't the time to be willful. Naturally, he didn't want to torment Jing Yu any further and withdrew. Go take a bath, Xiao Chen said. After the two of them washed up, Jing Yu fell asleep. Xiao Chen moved the table that was blocking the door and went to find Xing Yi and Xing Er to discuss business. Inside the room, Xing Yi and Xing Er were sitting on chairs with their swords in their arms. Occasionally, they would eat something or drink some water. Without their master's permission, they absolutely weren't allowed to drink alcohol. Most of the time, it was Xing Yi who did most of the talking. Xing Er only spoke monotonous syllables and occasionally spat out a word or two. Master! When Xing Yi and Xing Er saw Xiao Chen arrive, they hurriedly stood up and bowed slightly to Xiao Chen. We'll be able to leave Jade Pass tomorrow. Once we're out, Xing Er, immediately head to Bianxing City and bring this king's secret order to reorganize the troops and gather them in the Roman forest. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and said, Xing Yi, you're in charge of receiving all information and sending word to Fang Zicheng. This is this king's last request. Xing Yi and Xing Er bowed. What's the situation now? Who are following us? Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes at Xing Yi and asked. In reply to Master, the first people to arrive are from the poison sect. I'm afraid we'll run into them once we leave Jade Pass. Xing Yi bowed and replied. Poison sect, as expected. A cold glint flashed through Xiao Chen's eyes as he said indifferently, tell everyone to be careful. The poison sect's poison isn't something we can deal with. Tell Qinggu to be prepared to avoid being poisoned by the poison sect. Yes, your subordinate understands. Xing Yi nodded. The three of them stayed in the room and analyzed the enemy's next move. After a long time, they finally dispersed. When Xiao Chen returned to the room, Jing Yu was already fast asleep. Xiao Chen climbed onto the bed and fell asleep with Jing Yu in his arms. He had only slept for less than 4 hours before he woke up. When the sky began to brighten, Xiao Chen and Jing Yu got out of bed and left first. There were too many people in the day and it was inconvenient to move around, so they left as soon as the sky began to brighten. The people in the inn also began to leave one after another. They gathered at a meeting point outside the inn before heading for Jade Pass. When they were still some distance away from Jade Pass, the group stopped. They couldn't pass by so ostentatiously, so they had to think of a way to disguise themselves. We can pass, Jing Yu suddenly spoke up in the midst of their discussion. How? Everyone looked at her. Shangguan Linglong blinked in confusion. Have you forgotten? I'm not just Jing Yu. I have businesses in the Imperial City. My caravan can travel anywhere in Tokyo. Jing Yu's lips hooked into a faint smile. She pulled out a token from her waist and said, "This is the pass that Xiao Yi personally gave me. I remember now. When you solved Nan Li's chess game that day, His Majesty rewarded you with this." Shangguan Linglan's eyes widened as he spoke in pleasant surprise. "That's right. There are many of these tokens. They're in the hands of Xin Yuqing, Lu Man, and the other stewards. Mine is one of them. As long as you have this token, you can travel anywhere in Tokyo without any obstructions. The only thing we're missing now is the carriage and goods." Chapter 6:18. "That's easy. We'll just rob one of the passing carriages," Shangguan Linglan said casually. Everyone's expression turned strange. "Hey, did I say something wrong?" Shangguan Linglan stared at Xiao Chen and Jing Yu and said, "Yeah, haven't you wanted to do this for a long time?" Let's do that." Jing Yu coughed and replied. Everyone was slightly embarrassed, but they obeyed and ran back to the mountain to hide. To them, robbing a caravan of goods was too easy. They easily took over the caravan without harming anyone's life. They only knocked the people unconscious and threw them into the forest. They estimated that they would wake up before nightfall. Jing Yu, Xiao Chen, and the others all changed their clothes and dressed as guards. In order to not be too obvious, they asked Qinggu to take out some medicine and apply it on their faces to make their skin look darker. In order to not expose Xiao Chen and Jing Yu hid in the caravan and unloaded a portion of the goods. They left the box behind and hid in the box. Qinggu and Shangguan Linglan were dressed in their master's clothes and acted as the masters. When everything was ready and the lines were right, it was time to test their acting skills. The caravan majestically walked towards the Jade Gate. As they approached the gate, they saw how strict the checks were. There were even notices posted on the city walls. The portraits on the notices were of Xiao Chen and Jing Yu. The long line at the gate was checked one by one. It was very strict. Looking at the long line, they walked quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was Jing Yu's turn. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen hid in the caravan and listened to the conversation outside. "What are you doing? What are these things?" The inspecting soldier shouted arrogantly. "They are merchants from the imperial city. These are all cloth and satin clothing." Qing Ji's voice sounded. Footsteps sounded as if they were approaching the cloth. "They are from the imperial city?" The inspecting soldier glared and pulled out his sword without saying anything. "Men, detain them and interrogate them." "Impudent." At this moment, Shangguan Linglan's voice could be heard. "Do you know who we are? How dare you offend the imperial power? How dare you?" What? The inspecting soldier was stunned by Shangguan Linglan's loud and powerful voice, and he asked in fear, "Open your dog eyes and see clearly." Shangguan Linglan showed the token in his hand and said coldly, "This is a token bestowed by His Majesty. It allows you to travel unimpeded in the Tokyo. Who gave you the ability to disobey His Majesty? Do you not want your head anymore? Emperor, please forgive this humble one. This humble one doesn't dare." In an instant, the sound of weapons falling to the ground could be heard. The inspecting soldier, who was arrogant just a moment ago, bowed his head. "What are you waiting for? Let them go. If you delay my goods, do you think you can afford to pay for it with your clothes?" Shangguan Linglan arrogantly and disdainfully turned around and boarded the carriage. When the soldier heard this, his face turned black. Although he was angry in his heart, he did not dare to say anything. He held his breath and shouted to let them pass. Seeing the merchant enter the city in a grandiose manner, he spat out his saliva and said unhappily, "You bully people with your power. Isn't it just because you have some stinky money?" Chapter 6:19. What are you looking at? Investigate carefully and don't let anyone suspicious go. The inspecting soldier shouted. Little did he know that he had already sent all the people he wanted to capture into the city. Now, there was no way to capture them anymore. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen slowly let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they had Shangguan Linglan with them. If it had been Qinggu, they probably wouldn't have been able to handle it. After all, not everyone could suppress someone like that. When they reached the city, everyone quietly dispersed. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen came out of the carriage in a dark alley. After being cooped up in the carriage for so long, They almost suffocated to death. Looking at the Jade Pass, they felt helpless. We can't spend the night in the Jade Pass. We have to leave the city tonight. Jingyu took a deep breath and said, the news from the Imperial City hasn't reached the Jade Pass yet. If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid that all my businesses in the Jade Pass will have to be evacuated. This token will definitely become invalid. If we wait for the news to arrive before leaving, we will be trapped in the Jade Pass. Jingyu looked at everyone with a burning gaze and said, there's no time to lose. Let's leave the city in batches and gather outside the city. All right. Everyone agreed and quickly changed into simple clothes. Then they formed their own groups and left the city. Jingyu and Xiaochen mixed in. They changed into coarse clothes and smeared their faces. When the sky was about to turn dark, they headed for the city gate. Just as Jingyu and Xiaochen's horses leaped out of the city gate, they heard the sound of gongs and drums behind them. They were shouting something like closing the city gate. Jingyu and Xiaochen's hearts skipped a beat. However, they didn't speed up and continued to head out of the city. Jingyu even glanced at the city gate in confusion. Then, she shook her head as if she didn't know what was going on. She pretended to be chatting with Xiaochen and continued to head out of the city. Hey, you two. The soldier who was about to close the city gate wanted to stop Jingyu and Xiaochen. Enough, enough. Another person pulled the soldier back and said, didn't you see that they weren't in a hurry? They don't know anything. Why did you ask them to come back? You're looking for trouble. The soldier scratched his head and walked away awkwardly. After he closed the city gate, Jingyu and Xiaochen looked at each other. He inexplicably thought to himself, I'm still the quick-witted one. She almost didn't make it out. Jingyu turned back to look at Jadestone Pass. Then, she rode her horse into the forest. From now on, this Tokyo was no longer her place. Today, she had escaped from the Tokyo like a stray dog. In the future, she would become a king and rule the world. She would trample this Tokyo under her feet. Jingyu's eyes trembled. Her blood was boiling. Since I'm an evil person, I might as well be evil to the end. So what if it's a different world? I, Jingyu, have never been afraid of trouble. I just hate killing people and fighting. I hate everything. Since you've forced me to walk this path, then I'll walk it to the end. I'll walk to the peak. Outside Jadestone Pass, Jingyu and Xiaochen met up with the others. They rode up the mountain path when the sky was about to turn dark. When the sky was almost completely dark, everyone stared at the top of the mountain. They stood at the top of the mountain and watched as the people in Jadestone Pass lit their lanterns. Was it really safe after they left Jadestone Pass? No. Chapter 620. Jingyu took a deep breath and tilted her head to look at Xiaochen. Xiaochen also tilted his head to look at her. Their eyes met, and there was no other emotion in his gaze. There was only the promise of following her for life. Jingyu's lips curled up slightly. She reined in her horse and galloped up the hill. Everyone behind her turned their horses around and followed her, disappearing into the forest. Jingyu, where are your two gray wolves? Shangguan Linglan looked around for a long time before asking. They're waiting for us on the mountain, Jingyu said calmly. When did they go? We passed through the city. What about them? Shangguan Linglan asked curiously. Of course they passed through the mountains and forests. They arrived at the mountain before us. Jingyu replied with a slight smile. Shangguan Linglan was even more confused. She had been following Jingyu all this time. How could these two gray wolves find the way so accurately without anyone to guide them? How do you know they've already arrived? Shangguan Linglan tilted his head to look at Jingyu and asked. I saw them. Jingyu raised her head slightly. The sky was getting darker. Jingyu's pitch-black eyes slowly turned into the dazzling golden and green colors. Shangguan Linglan tilted his head to look at her, and his heart skipped a beat. Just as everyone was galloping on their horses, the clear howl of a wolf could be heard from the forest. A whoa! The howl was extremely clear, as if it was conveying something. Jingyu, who was originally quiet, was shocked. Whoa! Jingyu suddenly reined in her horse. Her eyes were filled with a cold and anxious light, as if she was looking in a certain direction. Jing Yu's action caused everyone to stop their horses. Something happened to Yin Jian and Yin Feng. This way, Jing Yu quickly said. She suddenly turned her horse around and galloped to the side. Shangguan Linglan, Xiao Chen, and the rest's expressions changed slightly. Everyone knew what these two gray wolves meant to Jing Yu. In the dense forest, Jing Yu quickly steered her horse. Her eyes were cold. After passing through a patch of shrubs, the path inside was no longer suitable for horses. However, Jing Yu did not stop. Everyone was surprised because Jing Yu was able to control her horse with great precision. She avoided the shrubs and branches and continued forward. Her agile body and nimble body instantly left everyone behind. Xiao and the rest had no choice but to stop. Tie up the horse and run over there. Xiao Chen immediately dismounted and quickly chased in the direction where Jing Yu disappeared. Xing Yi and Xing Er looked at each other. They turned around and ordered 2 people to watch over the area. The rest of the people also followed. Jing Yu seemed to have gone crazy as she galloped forward. The howls of the wolves became clearer and more urgent. Quickly kill those 2 beasts. The dense forest was in chaos. The low growls of the beasts and the voices of people could be heard. In an open space in the dense forest, a group of people were holding swords and sabers and slashing at 2 huge gray wolves. The bodies of the gray wolves were already covered in blood. It was unknown whether it was their own or the enemy's. One of them seemed to have its foot injured and was lying on the ground whimpering. It then stood up with difficulty, but because it couldn't support itself, it fell to the ground again. Roar! A low growl came from the gray wolf's throat. A pair of eyes filled with tyranny flashed with a dark green light. It stared at the group of people opposite it and walked slowly. The people opposite it held swords and sabers against the gray wolves, but no one dared to step forward. Chapter 621. The ground was littered with corpses. Some of them had their throats ripped open while others had their arms torn off. The thick smell of blood filled the air. Second young master, I'm afraid these 2 gray wolves are not simple. In the midst of the crowd, a slender figure stood in place. He was holding a leaf in his hand and looking at it carefully. When he heard the voice of the person who spoke, he paused and slowly raised his eyes. His handsome face was filled with a cold aura. His eyes were incomparably indifferent as he looked at the field. When he saw the gray wolf, the corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. He said indifferently, "It's just a beast. What's so special about it?" With that, the man narrowed his eyes. He raised his hand and threw the leaf in his hand. The light leaf was like a sharp arrow. It flew towards the gray wolf with a murderous aura. The leaf avoided the person and flew towards the gray wolf as if it had eyes. At that moment, a sharp arrow flew out from the dense forest. Its aura was not inferior to that of the leaf. Just as the leaf was about to pierce through the gray wolf's forehead, the sharp arrow flew past and nailed the leaf to the ground. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. A petite figure jumped down from the branch and slowly stood up. "Beast?" A voice filled with murderous intent sounded. The person who suddenly appeared slowly raised his head. A pair of eyes, one gold and one green, slowly opened in front of everyone. That pair of eyes stared directly at the white-clothed youth in the crowd. The white-clothed man's eyes flashed with shock. He looked at the girl standing in the open space. She was so petite and held a longbow in her hand. It was obvious that the arrow had come from her. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Strange pupils. The shock in the man's eyes slowly receded as a faint smile appeared on his lips. He strolled toward Jingyu. "You have strange pupils." The man looked at Jingyu from head to toe. His handsome face was filled with curiosity and joy. After looking around indifferently, his gaze landed on Jingyu's eyes. Her green eyes were like those of a vicious wolf, flashing with a cold light. Her golden eyes were like those of a lion. The threatening aura in her eyes made people's hearts tremble. "But, so what if I am?" Jingyu raised her chin arrogantly. She slowly pulled out the arrow from her back. She knocked the longbow and slowly pointed it at the white-clothed man. The tip of the arrow glowed with a cold light. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at the white-clothed man. She pursed her lips and said, "You want to kill my wolf?" The man in white looked at Jing Yu's posture. Her murderous intent was so strong that he felt like he had been locked on by the arrow. This feeling was so strong that he felt like he couldn't avoid it. How terrifying! The man's heart trembled. His fingertips moved slightly and his eyes narrowed dangerously. The two of them stared at each other for a long time, but there was no movement. The people behind them who were holding swords and sabers did not move without orders. For a moment, they were in a deadlock. At this moment, Jing Yu suddenly smelled a strong smell of blood. The smell of blood was very familiar. Chapter 622. Yin Feng. Jing Yu's heart clenched. She abruptly withdrew her arrow and turned around, only to see Yin Feng lying on the ground without making a sound. Apu! Yin Feng seemed to sense something and anxiously circled around Yin Feng. Jing Yu crouched down to examine Yin Feng's wound. As expected, the wound was stained with black blood. Yin Feng's eyes were lifeless. How dare you poison it? Jing Yu's heart was filled with murderous intent. She abruptly turned to glare at the white-robed man standing with his hands clasped behind his back. What? Are you angry? The white-robed man's lips curled in amusement. Everyone says that people with abnormal pupils are unrivaled in strength, but this gentleman doesn't believe it. This wolf will die in an hour. If you can defeat this gentleman will give you the antidote. Jing Yu's pupils constricted. An hour, to die. Tell me, who are you? The emotions surging in Jing Yu's chest were so intense. She seemed to clearly feel an incomparably violent aura surging in her body. At that moment, she wanted to charge forward recklessly and tear this person apart. This gentleman is the second young master of the poison sect, Yun Jing. The man sized up Jing Yu with interest. As if sensing Jing Yu's fury, Yushi licked his lips excitedly, his handsome features incomparably alluring. In this world, you are the first person who dares to threaten me like this. Jing Yu laughed. She slowly put down the longbow and quiver in her hands and pulled out the dagger by her shoe. Her lips curled as she said, "You are also the first person who makes me want to kill this much." Ha! Interesting. Yun Jing's eyes were filled with intense interest. Watching Jing Yu's movements, he slowly pulled out the fan at his waist. His eyes narrowed as he pointed at Jing Yu and said, "I really want to see what's so special about people with abnormal pupils." The murderous intent in Jing Yu's heart rushed to her brain. In that instant, the speed that was brewing in her body reached its peak. She held the dagger in front of her eyes as she narrowed her eyes at Yun Jing. Without another word, she dashed forward with unparalleled speed. In the blink of an eye, she was in front of Yun Jing. That lightning-like speed made Yun Jing's eyes tremble. He could clearly feel that Jing Yu did not have any internal energy. It was impossible for a person to reach this speed with pure force, let alone a woman. But Jing Yu had done it. It seemed that this person with abnormal pupils did have some ability. Yun Jing flipped the fan in his hand and narrowly avoided Jing Yu's dagger. The fan opened up and shot out like a weapon. Densely packed needles flew towards Jing Yu. Jing Yu's eyes narrowed. This fan was indeed strange. Since it was a member of the poison sect, the word poison was not a joke. In this night, the needles were originally invisible. Not to mention night, they could not be seen even during the day. But at this moment, in Jing Yu's eyes, they were almost illusory. Those needles were incomparably clear. Her eyes of different colors were rolling. Everyone and everything was unobstructed in Jing Yu's eyes. Jing Yu's body nimbly dodged all the needles. Close combat was Jing Yu's forte. Xiao Chun stood silently behind a tree trunk. He narrowed his pair of incomparably cold eyes as he watched the two people fighting in the open space. He did not move. After Xiao Chun, people arrived one after another. Seeing that Xiao Chun did not move, everyone stopped as well. Chapter 623. Shangguan Linglan and Qing Gu were the last to arrive. Qing Ji's martial arts were really too weak. If it weren't for Shangguan Linglan carrying him, he probably would have died of exhaustion halfway. Qing Gu, can you cure Silver Wind's poison? Xiao Chun looked sideways at Qing Gu and asked. Ninth brother, can you let me catch my breath? Qinggu lay on the tree trunk like a dead dog, panting as he looked at Xiao Chen. He was almost in tears. Go quickly. Xiao Chen threw down these two words and walked toward the field. The sudden appearance of Xiao Chen and the others made the crowd watching the battle instantly alert. They were afraid that Xiao Chen and the others would join the fight. However, Xiao Chen didn't make a move. Instead, he stood behind Jingyu with a group of people, quietly watching the fight in front of him. Yun Jing naturally noticed the arrival of Xiao Chen and the others, but he didn't have time to care. It had to be said that Jingyu's fighting skills really shocked Yun Jing. The strength of each stab seemed to be mixed with two violent forces. Those seemingly small fists smashed on his arm, causing his bones to hurt for a moment. It should be known that at this moment, his body was full of internal strength. A normal fist couldn't shake him at all, but Jingyu could. It could be seen how strong she was. Jingyu was focused on fighting with Yun Jing. On the other side, Qinggu had been dragged by Shangguan Linglan to save Grey Wolf. Although Qinggu was usually cheerful, he didn't dare to be careless when it came to saving people. Moreover, the person he wanted to save was Jingyu's wolf. Xiao Chen stared at the battle on the field for a long time, then slightly tilted his head to look at Qinggu and asked, "How is it?" "It's not a very troublesome poison. It's already been cleaned. Just bandage the wound and it'll be fine soon." Qinggu wiped the sweat on his forehead and replied. Xiao Chen's lips curved slightly. He looked sideways at the battlefield and coldly shouted, "Don't hold back. Silver Wind is fine." Sush. Jingyu retreated and stopped. Both of them took half a step back and stopped. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Jingyu's eyes flashed with surprise. She slightly tilted her head and saw Qinggu nod firmly at Jingyu. "What? The poison is cured? How is that possible?" Yun Jing's eyes were full of astonishment. He looked in the direction of Qinggu in disbelief. When he saw Qinggu bandaging Yinfeng's wound, his eyes narrowed coldly and coldly said, "You're from Miracle Medical Valley?" "Second young master, I'm the chief doctor of Miracle Medical Valley, Qinggu." Qinggu stood up politely and slightly bowed to Qinggu with a smile. "He's from Miracle Medical Valley." Anger flashed in Yun Jing's eyes. Why didn't his intelligence mention this person at all? "Very good." Jingyu grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. A pair of different colored eyes flashed slightly, dazzling and moving as she looked at Yun Jing. She lightly said, "Now we should settle the score. If you hurt Yinfeng, I'll make you pay back 10 times. Yun Jing, are you ready to accept the punishment?" How arrogant! Yun Jing slightly narrowed his eyes and stared at Jingyu. He said, "I'd like to see how far you can go." "Then, let's have a try." As soon as Jingyu's words fell, her body shot out like a sharp arrow, and the dagger in her hand fiercely attacked Yun Jing's lower body. Chapter 624. Good, very good. Yun Jing's eyes were filled with rage as he stared coldly at Xiao Chen and Jingyu. "The stronger your pupils are, the better. I really want to know how far you can go this time. Jingyu, right? My poison sect will never let you off." "Ha!" Jingyu laughed arrogantly as she pointed the dagger in her hand at Yun Jing. "Tell Nailin Yu that this lady wants the poison sect." What big words! Yun Jing's eyes narrowed as he stared at the woman dressed in ink-red robes. Her heterochromatic eyes were filled with a fiery passion. She was so stunning and dazzling that his heart trembled slightly. He coldly shouted, "My poison sect will be waiting. Let's go." How could Yun Jing stay here for even half an hour? He immediately led the group into the forest and scattered in all directions. Jingyu and Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't stop them, but they wouldn't chase after them either. Now wasn't the time to fight recklessly. They would definitely make the poison sect pay for what they did today 1,000 times over. Jingyu turned to look at Yinfeng. When she noticed that Yinfeng had fainted, she finally relaxed. In order to take care of Yinfeng, the group had no choice but to stop here and wait for the night to pass before making any plans. The night was dark. Jingyu changed Yinfeng's medicine again before standing up. She looked at the two gray wolves cuddling together and clenched her fists. She had been hurt again and again because of her loved ones. First, it was her father who left, then she was forced to flee. And now, it was Yin Feng who had almost lost his life. Holy family! Poison sect! Tokyo! Jing Yu clenched her fists tightly as an uncontrollable tyrannical aura churned in her chest. A voice in her head was shouting, Kill them all. Destruction and survival were only on the line. Jing Yu revealed a brutality she had never shown before. If you don't kill them, they will kill you by hook or by crook. The people by your side could be your father today, or Yin Jian and Yin Feng tomorrow. What about the next time? Big Brother? Or Shangguan Linglan? Or perhaps Xiao Chen? Jing Yu slowly raised her head and looked at Xiao Chen, who was frowning as he spoke to Xing Yi and Xing Er. She suddenly felt suffocated. When she thought about how Xiao Chen would be injured and killed because of her, Jing Yu felt an unprecedented shock in her heart. He absolutely could not let such a thing happen. Jing Yu pursed her lips. Would it really be all right if she escaped into the Roman forest? Should he dodge or fight? Jing Yu raised her head slightly and looked at the moon in the sky. The moon was incomplete and did not look like a disk. It hung high in the sky and emitted a weak light. Jing Yu stared at the moon for a long time. Her golden and green eyes were undergoing subtle changes. Jing Yu spat out a single word. Die. Spitting out another word, Jing Yu's lips curled into an indifferent smile. At this moment, the scorching heat suppressed in her heart slowly flowing towards Jing Yu's limbs and bones. Jing Yu closed her eyes slightly. Xiao Chen tilted his head and saw the scene. The girl bathed in the moonlight. The bright moonlight shone on Jing Yu's face, emitting a faint aura. Her petite body seemed to be enveloped by the moonlight at this moment, blending into everything in the world. Xiao Chen did not know what he was thinking, but at that moment, he wanted to wake Jing Yu up. Chapter 625. Jing Yu's eyelashes fluttered, then she slowly opened her eyes and glanced sideways at Xiao Chen. The moment Jing Yu glanced at Xiao Chen abruptly held his breath. Jing Yu was looking at him with a pair of deep, resplendent eyes, limpid and jade green. Those jade green eyes were as mesmerizing as gemstones and jade. Deep within them, there was a faint hint of gold. They were cold and aloof, but also passionate and arrogant. Such a strange gaze made one unconsciously hold their breath, as if they were afraid of frightening Jing Yu. Xiao Chen, I want to destroy the Holy Family, the Poison Sect, the Tokyo, and the world. One soft call, and 4 people would be destroyed. Her voice was incomparably calm, but in Xiao Chen's ears, it was mixed with countless violent storms, thick with ambition and ruthlessness. All right, I'll accompany you. Xiao Chen took a small step forward and stood in front of Jing Yu, looking at the woman who was looking up at him. His figure could be seen clearly in those jade-green eyes. Jing Yu smiled. Jing Yu. The silence was broken as Shangguan Linglan strode over to Jing Yu and Xiao Chen's side. When he saw Jing Yu's eyes flicker with surprise, he quickly recovered and said, This is the commander's tally. After passing through another city, you'll reach the desert. My father has 2,000 elite troops there for you to use. Jing Yu's eyes lit up. Although 2,000 troops wasn't much, it was a timely help at a time like this. Bian Xingxing's 100,000 troops await your orders. Xiao Chen's lips curved slightly. As soon as he finished speaking, Shangguan Linglan and Jing Yu's eyes widened. They looked at Xiao Chen as if they'd seen a ghost. What? This king is the 9th emperor. Shouldn't he have his own personal troops? Xiao Chen calmly asked with raised eyebrows. Ahem. Shangguan Linglan coughed slightly, then looked seriously at Xiao Chen and said, 9th emperors, no wonder Xiao Yi sees you as a thorn in his side. With your 100,000 troops, if you silently infiltrate the imperial city, I'm afraid that Tokyo will change hands in an instant. This king doesn't want to do that. Xiao Chen said faintly, otherwise, why would he arrange for his troops to be stationed at Bianxing, a border city far from the imperial city? Bianxing City is very close to the Roman forest. Shangguan Linglan's heart moved slightly as she spoke. Infiltrate all troops into the forest. Jing Yu was silent for a moment before saying, Before I arrive, you can't enter the forest. You can let people move around outside. The Roman forest is very big and connects to the 4 countries. That will be our starting point. Okay. Shangguan Linglan nodded and said, tomorrow, I'll go alone to gather the troops and infiltrate the Roman forest. Lanlan. Jing Yu's heart skipped a beat as she called out. Jing Yu, you know me. I'm very happy to be able to do this. I'm looking forward to it. Shangguan Linglan put his hand on Jing Yu's shoulder and said with a smile, I thought you would choose to escape from the war. Jing Yu, do you know? It seems to me that you can't fit in with this world. You're always so independent. It even makes me feel that there's nothing in this world that you care about. Shangguan Linglan looked at Jing Yu with a burning gaze and said, it's only at this moment that I can clearly feel that you're here by my side. Chapter 626. Shangguan Linglan's words moved Jing Yu. Her heart trembled slightly as she looked at Shangguan Linglan, unable to say anything for a long time. Jing Yu, you are my friend. No matter if you are a demon, a ghost, or some other terrifying existence, I will never leave you behind. Shangguan Linglan looked at Jing Yu with a smile and said, you are the most important friend to me, Shangguan Linglan. If you die, I will avenge you. If I die, my parents will be your parents. If you die, I will avenge you. If I die, my parents will be your parents. At this moment, Jing Yu's eyes suddenly became hot. The corner of her mouth hooked up into a faint smile. She hugged Shangguan Linglan tightly and whispered into Shangguan Linglan's ear, we will not die. Absolutely not. Ha! Shangguan Linglan pushed Jing Yu away and laughed. All right, go and rest. Tomorrow we will part ways and meet up in the Roman forest. Jing Yu nodded slowly. She looked at Shangguan Linglan's back as he left and her eyes lit up. Xiao Chen stepped forward and put his arm around Jing Yu's shoulder and said, it is an honor to have a friend like you. Jing Yu nodded and said, it is an honor. The night passed peacefully. Shangguan Linglan left at dawn along with Xing Er. Xing Er took Xiao Chen's secret order and went to Bianxing City. The two of them traveled together for a while before parting ways at an intersection. In order to attract attention, Jing Yu and Xiao Chen chose to go in the opposite direction from Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er. They took a detour towards the Roman forest. They had to protect Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er as best they could, which was to attract the enemy's attention. After hiding for dozens of days, Jing Yu and Xiao Chen became wanted men after the battle with the poison sects Yun Jing in the mountains outside Jade Pass. Ninth brother. I can't take it anymore. I'm dying of exhaustion. Qinggu had lost a lot of weight during their escape. His cries could be heard the entire way. Useless. Jing Yu rolled her eyes in disdain. She looked at Qinggu, who was sprawled on the horse, with disdain. Ninth sister? Qinggu wanted to cry. He couldn't stand being looked down upon by a woman. But when he thought about it, this woman wasn't an ordinary woman. Forget it, he shouldn't think of her as a woman. Thinking of this made Qinggu feel better. Yangzhou is up ahead. From Yangzhou to Fuling City, we have to pass through the sea. Qingji's injuries had mostly healed. He was fine now, but he still couldn't use his right hand. Qinggu had also said that his hand wouldn't recover for a while. It won't be easy to sneak into Yangzhou City, Xiao Chen said calmly. Let's go in 2 groups, Jing Yu said calmly. I'll go with big brother. Xiao Chen, you go with Qinggu. Xiao Chen and Qinggu exchanged glances. They were unhappy that they couldn't go with Jing Yu. But they had to prioritize the overall situation. If Jing Yu and Xiao Chen stood together, they would be exposed too much. Jing Yu's arrangement was right. Yangzhou City was the largest city in Jiangnan. It was also a prosperous city. The scenery inside was exquisite. Jing Yu went to the outskirts of Yangzhou City to have a better chance of sneaking in. Seeing the endless stream of people, she realized that there was a legendary competition going on in Yangzhou City. Chapter 627. It was said that it was a competition where all the musical talents in the world would compete to determine the best musical talent in the world. TSK? Do I have to go up and sing Little Apple? Jing Yu squatted in a bush in ragged clothes, playing the role of a little beggar. She listened to the conversations of the people entering and exiting the city and understood everything. But after she understood everything, she felt even more annoyed. She was a perfect example of a music addict. Other than China's national anthem, she had never sung anything else. How about singing the national anthem? Anyway, these people won't understand it. Jingyu muttered as she chewed on a blade of grass. Just as Jingyu was about to leave, she suddenly saw a servant walking towards her with a big bowl of noodles in his hands. Step by step, he walked towards Jingyu. Instantly, Jingyu froze. Should she run? Or should she run? She should stay still. Jingyu quietly squatted on the ground and drew circles until a voice came from above her head. Little brother, my lord has given you a bowl of noodles to eat. That person looked at Jingyu's muddy appearance and thought that she should still be a child. Jingyu's face darkened. Little brother, your sister. I am a woman. A woman. Are you blind? Can't see. Jingyu's heart was filled with resentment. She didn't even try to hide her gender. Little brother, quickly eat it while it's hot. That person continued, my master is kind and said that if you have nowhere to go, you can follow this road and go to Jade Pass to find a job. No one will scold or beat you. Jingyu was slightly stunned. Why did he suddenly mention Jade Pass? The man saw that Jingyu didn't move for a long time and thought that he had scared her. He hurriedly said a few words, but there was still no movement from her. He thought that this little beggar was a mute and felt very regretful. But he still put the bowl in his hand in front of Jingyu, shook his head, and left. Jingyu raised her head slightly and looked through her messy hair in the direction that the person had left. In a small noodle shop by the roadside, there were a few people sitting at a table. Jingyu narrowed her eyes and looked over. When she saw that person eating with a familiar face, Jingyu was stunned. How you? Jingyu looked at the man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. She was in a daze. She had not met Hao Yu in the Jade Gate. She did not expect to meet Hao Yu outside Yangzhou City. Jingyu frowned slightly, thinking that it was normal for Hao Yu to come to this place. But now, should she go up and greet him? Or should she just ignore him? This was not the same as before. She was now an evildoer, a target of Tokyo. With Hao Yu's temper, he would immediately send her to the yamen when he sees her, right? Cough cough. Thinking about it this way, he decided to forget about it. Jingyu silently squatted down and raised her hand to eat the steaming hot noodles. But a horse suddenly galloped past, kicking up dust and sand. Even though Jingyu's eyes were sharp, she could not block it. In an instant, the noodles were covered in a layer of dust. Fuck! Jingyu's face instantly darkened. I am fucking hungry. Jingyu lowered her head and looked at the layer of dust floating on the noodles. She silently sighed. If she threw it away, Hao Yu would find out. If she did not throw it away, would she really have to eat it? Thinking about this, Jingyu was suddenly at a loss. Chapter 628. If she didn't throw it away, would she really have to eat it? With that thought, Jingyu suddenly felt conflicted. Just as Jingyu was thinking about swallowing it in one gulp, she saw a figure walking towards her with a cane. It was an old beggar. He looked worn out and seemed to be very tired from walking. He found a place to sit down. Jingyu looked at him as he sat down. Cough cough cough. This person was probably sick. He felt Jingyu's gaze and looked over slightly. When he saw the bowl in Jingyu's hand and the noodles in the bowl, he wanted to swallow his dry throat but still turned his head away. Jingyu was slightly stunned. She looked down at the bowl in her hand and suddenly thought of a good idea. She could avoid Hao Yu and leave quietly. Jingyu stood up with a limp and walked towards the old beggar. She silently handed the bowl in her hand to the old beggar. The old beggar seemed to be frightened by Jingyu's actions. He was slightly stunned. Then he looked at Jingyu and asked, For me? That was a hoarse and dry voice. He looked at Jingyu with excitement. Jingyu nodded and extended her hand forward. The old beggar trembled as he took the bowl and thanked her profusely. Jingyu waved her hand and pointed in the direction of Hao Yu. Then she pointed in that direction and didn't say anything. Did the Lord over there give it to you? The old beggar said excitedly, You gave it to me. What will you eat? Jing Yu shook her head and turned to leave. The old beggar was very excited. He thanked Jing Yu as he ate the noodles. Jing Yu felt a little uncomfortable. Originally, she just wanted to get away, but when she saw the old beggar eating such dirty noodles with such relish, she suddenly felt uncomfortable. She held her breath and walked away quickly. Jing Yu didn't notice that Hao Yu, who was far away, saw the whole process with his own eyes. "Milord, this little beggar is quite interesting." The person who spoke was the person who had just delivered the noodles. Interesting." Hao Yu nodded in agreement and said, "His footsteps seem incomplete, but his steps are steady and powerful. He hasn't spoken, but his expression is clear. He's not simple." The person who delivered the noodles was stunned for a moment. He thought that Hao Yu was praising the little beggar's actions, but he didn't expect that he was observing this. Then, according to his master's words, could it be that this little beggar was fake? "My lord, is this little beggar fake? How did you know?" That person looked at Hao Yu in confusion and asked. This is the pugilistic world." Hao Yu laughed heartily and said, "I knew when you walked over. Didn't you notice the difference between these two beggars? That old beggar is drooling over the food, but that little beggar has been squatting in front of the noodle house for a long time without showing that kind of expression. Why? Because his attention isn't on the food at all, but on other things. What can a beggar pay attention to?" Hao Yu said lightly. "When I asked you to deliver the noodles, it was also a test. Sure enough, this little beggar didn't show any gratitude or excitement. On the other hand, the old beggar was pleasantly surprised and grateful." Hao Yu continued, "And, didn't you see that when the horses passed by, the noodles were covered with dust and the little beggar showed hesitation?" Chapter 629. He is hesitating whether or not to eat. A beggar actually cares about the dirt of the food. Lining, you have been with me for a long time. Of the beggars you have seen in Jade Pass, which one of them cares about the dirt of the food? Even if a steamed bun was stepped on, they would not hesitate to put it in their mouth, Hao Yu said lightly. "Sir, what you said is really amazing." The man called Lining thought about what he had just seen. He originally did not notice anything strange, but after Hao Yu's analysis, he was shocked to realize that he had missed so many clues. "It is just observation." Hao Yu smiled pretentiously. He frowned slightly and looked in the direction Jing Yu had left. "But why is this little beggar doing this? He doesn't look like someone who knows martial arts. It is really puzzling." "Sir, you are here to enjoy the scenery. Don't meddle in other people's business." Lin Ying said rather speechlessly, "You have been eliminating violence and bringing peace to the people along the way. How is this sightseeing?" "That is true." Hao Yu said with slight embarrassment, "I heard that Miss Qin will also come to the conference this time. She doesn't like me to meddle in other people's business. This time, you must endure it. This young master's marriage is at stake." Lin Ying's face darkened. He silently ate his noodles, too lazy to pay attention to Hao Yu, who was completely immersed in his memories. Thinking back to when I met Miss Qin, it was also a hero saving a damsel in distress. Hao Yu said with great emotion. "My lord, your noodles are cold." Lin Ying interrupted Hao Yu's words with a serious expression. In the forest, Jing Yu comfortably washed the mud from her body. Jing Yu was here, and so was Xiao Chen, but she did not see Qinggu. It was said that Qinggu had also gone to investigate. This made Jing Yu very confused. How could Qinggu investigate? Jing Yu told him all the information she had heard, and finally mentioned Hao Yu. "The past master of Jade Pass is here?" Jing Lang was a little surprised. "The World Music Association." Xiao Chen's lips curved slightly. He said lightly, "It is normal for Hao Yu to be here." What do you know?" Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chen in confusion. "Hao Yu and Miss Qin Ruishan of the Falling Moon Villa have some history." Xiao Chen said faintly, "When I was investigating the case of Guiyin's disappearance, I knew something about Hao Yu. Miss Qin is the one he likes." The Fallen Moon Villa is a great sect in the pugilistic world. Qin Ruishan is the only daughter of the villa master of the Fallen Moon Villa. Her zither skills are the best in Jiangnan. Qin Ruishan will definitely come to the World Music Conference today. It's normal for Hao Yu to follow her. It would be abnormal if he didn't come. Xiao Chen explained faintly. Luiyue Villa? Jing Yu blinked her eyes in confusion, indicating that she knew nothing about Jianghu. Yes. Xiao Chen nodded slightly and said, since it's the World Music Association, then we'll have more confidence when we go in. Do you know how to play a musical instrument? Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chen in surprise. I don't. Xiao Chen answered seriously. Jing Yu's face darkened. He didn't know how to play a musical instrument, yet he said they would have more confidence when they went in. The people who entered Yangzhou City to participate in the conference were all brought to a special place by specialized people. Then they would go through an audition. Then they would be given a place to stay and wait for the competition. If you don't even know how to play a musical instrument, how are you going to enter the city? Chapter 630. Moreover, how to escape after entering the city was still a problem. Could it be that they really had to perform on stage? Wait until they were done before leaving? Oh my God! Jing Yu immediately felt conflicted when she thought about it. This clearly meant that they had no confidence at all. No, but we can learn. Xiao Chen calmly said. Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chen with a faint smile in her eyes and said, how can a musical instrument be learned in a day? Could it be that you're just going to learn a voice that you can muddle through with? Xiao Chen nodded. Jing Yu's face darkened. At this moment, she saw Qing Gu happily running over and shouting, I found the news, I found the news. 3 days later, Yangzhou City will host the World Music Competition. We can pretend to be participants and sneak in. Jing Yu, Xiao Chen, and Qing Gu looked at him like he was an idiot. Then they turned around and left. The excitement on Qing Ji's face still hadn't passed. This was the first time he found out. Seeing Jing Yu's reaction, Xiao Chen and the others immediately felt bitter. Pretending to be participants and sneaking in was the only way. After a few discussions, they decided to do this. The 4 of them split up and formed teams. Each of them made up a set of background and then asked someone to buy matching clothes. Only then did they head towards Yangzhou City. On the second day, Yangzhou City was still bustling with noise and excitement. A carriage majestically headed towards Yangzhou City's gate. The carriage was exquisite and beautiful. It had a strong Western aura. The bells on the carriage were incomparably loud. Shoo! The carriage stopped at the city gate and the people who were checking came forward. The person who was sitting on the carriage raised his hand and handed over a letter. He said, we came from the West and were introduced by Miss Qin to participate in the World Music Conference. Luo Yu Villa? Miss Qin Ruishan? The person who was interrogating seemed to be startled. He looked at the letter and slightly raised his head. The curtain of the carriage was lifted. There were 2 people inside, a man and a woman. The man was incomparably handsome. The woman's pitch-black eyes were very bright. The woman was wearing an ink-red dress that floated in the wind. She wore a light veil on her face. There were golden bells hanging on the carriage. The 2 people's clothes were very different. Their clothes were very revealing. Golden things that looked like pieces of gold flashed on the clothes. The chest ornaments were like gems. They were especially dazzling. This set of clothes that could be said to be unprecedented. The man who was sitting on the side of the woman said in a deadpan manner, Little brother, please make things convenient. This is related to my sister's marriage. When the person heard this, he was slightly startled. He looked at the man up and down and then turned his gaze to the silent woman. He lowered his head and looked at the letter in his hand. He pondered in his heart. Since it was the guarantor of the Luo Yu Villa, there shouldn't be any problems. Since it's like this, guests from the West should be accommodating. Quickly, please come in. The person put away the letter in his hand and slightly smiled. He slightly bowed to the 2 people who were sitting in the carriage and said, Chapter 631. For such a big world music conference, people from all over the world would come here. There were also people from the West. In the past, there were definitely people from the West. The person who was checking looked at the majestic convoy entering and nodded slightly in his heart. It seemed that this year's music conference would be lively. The long-distance convoy entered the city safely and unimpeded. Guided by the people in the city, they were warmly received into a rather exquisite restaurant. Many people had already gathered in the restaurant, and the high and low notes could be heard from afar. Jingyu silently wiped her sweat. On the convoy from the west, the eyes of the masked woman moved slightly. Obviously, the people who were acting as people from the west were naturally Jingyu and Jinglang. The two of them looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. We finally sneaked in. Jingyu covered her face. Where did the clothes on her body come from? Needless to say. Of course, they were robbed. In a certain dense forest, several people were tied to a tree trunk. Their eyes were full of tears and they had no idea why they were robbed. Fortunately, the robbers were quite reliable and left clothes to wear. The carriage slowly stopped outside the loft. The person who was guiding them found a place for the two Westerners, Jingyu and Jinglang. Jingyu put on airs and thanked the person. Seeing that the person had gone far, she then followed Jinglang upstairs, talking and laughing. "Well, big brother, this is the East? It's really different from where we come from." Jingyu seemed to be very excited and said in surprise, "Yes, this is the Central Plains. If you have the chance, you have to go out and walk around to understand the customs of the Central Plains." Jinglang said with a pretentious smile, "If we go back to the tribe, we must tell them." Jingyu and Jinglang chatted as they walked into the room. Countless people who were listening to them from afar revealed a look of understanding. It turned out that these two people came from somewhere else. No wonder their clothes were so strange. Only a few people were calm and didn't seem surprised to see this kind of people. Obviously, these people must have seen this kind of people at the music conference before, or had they already heard of them? This kind of people were either old foxes or disciples of those old foxes who came to participate in this competition. Jingyu and Jinglang entered the room, but they didn't stop talking. Jingyu asked this and that in high spirits, and occasionally let out excited exclamations. Outside the room, a figure leaned against the corner and listened for a long time. Then, he shook his head slightly and turned to leave. In the room, Jingyu and Jinglang sat opposite each other. Their faces were expressionless, but the words they said were full of different tones. After half an hour, they finally stopped. You are still the most cautious." Jinglang also held his teacup and took a sip. "If they let us in so easily, they must have observed more." Jingyu calmly raised her eyebrows and replied, "Now that we have entered Yangzhou City, it's even more troublesome. How are we going to escape from this music conference? How are we going to take a boat? It seems that more planning is needed." Chapter 632. It seems that more planning is needed. Jinglang pursed his lips slightly and said, "Let's wait until the 9 emperors come in and meet before we make our plans." Jingyu nodded slightly in agreement and the two of them chatted for a while. Just as Jingyu was about to stand up and return to her room, her sharp ears heard the sound of footsteps in front of the door and a faint voice. "Is this the place? Miss Bomi lives here?" A very gentle and soothing voice sounded. Jingyu and Jinglang both trembled when they heard this. Yes, 2 guests from the west came with Miss Qin's letter. This humble one paid special attention to it and found that it is here, another voice replied. Jingyu and Jinglang both stood up and slowly walked towards the door. "I haven't seen Brother Lang in a long time. I really miss you." The sound of footsteps entered and a moment later, there was the sound of knocking on the door. Jingyu and Jinglang looked at each other and their eyes were filled with seriousness. They looked at each other and quietly walked into the room. The sound of knocking was still there and then there was the sound of the door being pushed open. Someone walked in and asked in a slightly raised voice, "Is there anyone here? Why aren't they here?" The gentle female voice sounded again. This humble one clearly saw those 2 people come in. "Why aren't they here? Could it be that they have left?" Another voice answered. It sounded doubtful and then said, "I'll go downstairs and ask if anyone saw anyone go out." "Go quickly," the woman said with slight displeasure. "I will wait here for now." The sound of footsteps left and the room became quiet. Jing Yu and Jing Lang, who were hiding in the room, frowned slightly. This person had actually sat down here. It seemed that this was going to be troublesome. Jing Yu and Jing Lang didn't move and didn't show themselves. Hearing the sound of drinking tea and putting down the teacup, the woman seemed to be impatient. She stood up slightly and walked around. As she walked, she actually walked towards Jing Yu and Jing Lang. Immediately, Jing Yu and Jing Lang tensed up. They lowered their heads slightly and saw a shadow walking towards the inner room. However, it paused at the door and turned around. They didn't know what it was doing. Jing Yu's eyebrows twitched as she watched. She raised her hand slightly and gestured to Jing Lang to retreat. Jing Lang pursed his lips and slowly took a few steps back. Jing Yu moved and took a few steps forward. At this moment, the figure also approached. The moment the figure approached, Jing Yu's body suddenly flashed. Her hand formed into a claw and without hesitation, she grabbed the woman's throat and covered her mouth with her other hand. In the blink of an eye, she dragged the woman into the room. The woman's body stiffened and her eyes flashed with incomparable fear. Jing Yu could clearly feel the rhythm of the woman's heartbeat. "Don't make a sound." Jing Yu narrowed her eyes coldly. Her cold voice was close to the woman's ear and was filled with thick killing intent. The woman's body stiffened. She turned her eyes and saw Jing Lang standing not far away with his hands behind his back. She nodded slightly, indicating that she definitely wouldn't make a sound. Jing Yu tried to release her hand. The woman's body stiffened slightly. Jing Yu saw that the woman didn't make a sound and slowly put her hand down. The three of them looked at each other. The woman's body trembled slightly. She took a deep breath and asked in a hoarse voice, "Where is the original identity?" Chapter 633. Don't worry, we didn't take anyone's life. Jing Yu looked at the woman in front of her. She was clearly terrified, but she was able to remain calm. Furthermore, she asked this question the moment she released the restraints. "Phew, that's good." The woman let out a sigh of relief. "You're Qin Ruishan from Luoyue Villa?" Jing Yu sized up this woman who was full of gentleness. She felt that this woman was not at all like the daughters of the officials in the imperial city. The arrogance between her eyebrows carried a rather chivalrous feeling. She was clearly a very gentle person, but there was a feeling that she would fight to the death with others at any time. "That's me." Qin Ruishan pursed her lips slightly and bowed politely to the two of them. She turned her eyes slightly to look at the two of them and said indifferently, "If I'm not wrong, the two of you are probably related to the criminal wanted by the imperial court?" Qin Ruishan pursed her lips slightly as she looked at the two of them. Her clear eyes were filled with wisdom. She was actually able to identify the two of them with a single sentence. This really surprised Jing Yu. She raised her eyebrows slightly and asked Qin Ruishan with interest, "How did you know?" "Yes." Qin Ruishan calmed down when she heard Jing Yu's answer. She looked at the two of them and said, "To be able to enter Yangzhou City at such a time, other than being forced into a corner, what else could it be? Tokyo's wanted posters are posted all over the city. Such a huge incident has already spread throughout Tokyo. How could I not know?" Qin Ruishan pursed her lips and said, "Furthermore, my intuition has always been very accurate." "How interesting." Jing Yu crossed her arms and looked at Qin Ruishan with interest. She said, "Since you've guessed our identities, why didn't you shout? In my opinion, you're not a young lady without any martial arts. As the eldest young lady of Luoyue Villa, you shouldn't be like this. Why didn't you do anything?" Jing Yu looked at Qin Ruishan and raised her eyebrows. "Why should I shout? What do you think I should do?" Qin Ruishan curled her lips in disdain. "I've seen a lot of things in Jianghu. Those sanctimonious gentlemen can be found everywhere. Could it be that the 9th Emperor is really a traitor? Is the 9th imperial concubine really a demon? If that's true, then what?" Qin Ruishan stared fixedly at Jing Yu. There was no fear in her eyes. She didn't have any other thoughts. She just stared at Jing Yu with clear eyes filled with disdain. "To put it bluntly, the 9th Emperors," Qin Ruishan raised her eyebrows, "the 9th Empresses and brought death." Qin Ruishan raised her brows slightly and looked at the two of them. I don't know who you are, and I don't want to know. I don't belong to any side, so I won't lend you a helping hand or expose your whereabouts. How can we trust you? Jing Yu raised her eyebrows and looked at Qin Rushen. The best way to ensure that you won't reveal your whereabouts is to silence them. What do you think? Do you think that killing the young lady of Luoyue Villa won't reveal our whereabouts? That it won't be revealed sooner? Qin Rushen asked calmly. Her question stumped Jing Yu. At this moment, footsteps came from outside and a voice called out. Young Lady Qin, are you there? This voice clearly belonged to the servant who had just left. Chapter 634. This voice clearly belonged to the waiter who had just left. This is a chance to prove yourself. Do you want to try? Qin Rushen wasn't in a hurry to speak. Instead, she calmly looked at the two and asked. Jing Yu slightly tilted her head and met Jing Lang's eyes. Qin Rushen had already lifted the curtain and walked out. She calmly said, I'm here. Young Lady Qin. The waiter curiously looked at Qin Rushen who had just walked out and asked, I've asked around. I didn't see anyone who lives here leave. Did they wander around the restaurant? Does young Lady Qin still want to wait here? It's fine. The two of them aren't used to Yangzhou's climate and are sleeping inside, Qin Rushen said. There's nothing else for you to do. You can leave first. Miss Bomi is changing her clothes. This young lady will be staying here for a while. I see. The waiter suddenly understood. Who's here? At this moment, a voice rang out from the inner room. Jing Yu had indeed changed into a set of light clothes. She rubbed the space between her eyebrows as if she was very tired. She walked out and asked in confusion. So it's a waiter from the restaurant. Jing Yu very amicably bowed slightly to the waiter. Bomi, you're really something. I almost couldn't find you. Qin Rushen's expression and actions were all on point. She didn't show any signs of unfamiliarity as she intimately held onto Jing Yu's arm. Jing Yu also sat down with Qin Rushen. It's my fault. I'm not used to Yangzhou's climate, Jing Yu said as she rubbed her head in discomfort. You're from the West. It's natural that you're not used to this place. You'll get used to it after a few more days. Qin Rushen calmly replied. She turned to the waiter and said, What are you still doing here? Yes. This humble one will take his leave. The manservant listened to their conversation and observed their movements and expressions without batting an eyelid. Only then did he put down the last trace of doubt in his heart and completely admitted that these two people from the West were the real deal. Jing Yu and Qin Rushen watched as the servant left and slowly let go of each other's hands. Jing Yu looked at Qin Rushen calmly and said, Didn't you say that you wouldn't help us? Then why did you do that just now? You should know that earlier, you used my life to threaten me. Naturally, I would want to completely escape. Qin Rushen stood up and said, I can guarantee that not a single word of what happened today will come out of my mouth. However, there's no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. Both of you take care. After saying that, Qin Rushen turned and left. She didn't take any precautions, didn't probe, and didn't leave any clues behind. Jing Yu looked at Qin Rushen's back as she left. A faint look of interest flashed in her eyes. This woman was really an interesting person. Jing Lang only came out after seeing the door close again. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Jing Yu and said, These are the sons and daughters of the Jianghu. What a good son and daughter of the Jianghu. Jing Yu praised lightly. She walked to the window and said, This restaurant isn't safe. I wonder how Xiao Chen and the rest are doing now. Xiao Chen. He must have a way to get in. Jing Lang was also curious. How did Xiao Chen get in? Jing Yu slightly raised her head and didn't say anything. Chapter 635. Outside Yangzhou City, an incomparably large group of people was slowly moving through the intersection. Their black flags were emitting a rather gloomy aura. The ink-black carriage was moving towards the city gate. There was a skull symbol on the carriage which made the people on the road retreat. Hell King's people have arrived? So scary. The passers-by on the road revealed a look of extreme horror in their eyes. In an instant, a large path was opened up on the originally crowded road. The complexion of the guards at Yangzhou City's gate changed as the black carriage entered. Who in Jianghu didn't know the name of Hell King? Just hearing this name made people panic. If Hell King wanted you to die at midnight, he wouldn't let you live until dawn. This was the name of Hell King. Hell Sect was also known as Nether Sect. The leader of this Nether Sect was Hell King. He was cruel and ruthless. He had massacred a lot of people. It was said that Hell King's appearance was very frightening. He wore a mask all day long. It was said that as long as someone saw Hell King's face, they would be scared to death. Strange rumors could be heard everywhere. It could be said that the Nether Sect was very popular 5 or 6 years ago. However, it was also at that time that a group of martial artists gathered together and ruthlessly suppressed the Nether Sect. It was said that countless experts had fallen in that war. However, the Nether Sect had also suffered heavy losses. It was also after that battle that the Nether Sect received heavy losses and quietly disappeared from the Jianghu. Their style of conduct had also become very low-key. It had been a long time since the Nether Sect's people had moved out with such great fanfare. Looking at those white skeletons, and then looking at the black carriage, one could almost feel a cold wind from afar, making the people on the side of the road tremble. Looking at those little ghosts under the King of Hell, they felt as if they were floating, as if they didn't have feet. The person in charge of the inspection in Yangzhou City saw the slow-moving carriages and his legs suddenly trembled. How could he inspect them? Even if he was given 100 guts, he wouldn't dare to stop Hell Sect's carriages. In the past, he heard that there was a young master who claimed to be from a relatively large sect. He blocked the carriage of the King of Hell. However, the people of Nether Sect didn't even greet him and directly chopped him into minced meat. This wasn't the most frightening thing. The most frightening thing was that the driver of this sect wanted to take revenge. However, before they could even take action, they were slaughtered by Nether Sect's people in one night. What kind of method was this? What kind of power was that? A small shrimp like me really can't be provoked. The person in charge of the inspection silently took a few steps back as he muttered in his heart, "King of Hell, just pretend that you didn't see me. Hurry up and go over," the inspector thought silently. However, the moment the Prime Minister's residence landed, the carriage that was originally moving stopped in front of the inspector. Immediately, the inspector sensed it and pairs of incomparably cold eyes looked towards Jiyunshu. That feeling was as if there were countless large knives placed on his neck. My lord?" The man's back immediately broke out in cold sweat. He even stuttered when he spoke. Could it be that he was blocking the path of the King of Hell? My God! The King of Hell is going to kill me. This king heard that entering the city requires inspection? The black curtain of the carriage was slowly lifted. Chapter 636. Inside the black carriage, one could vaguely see a figure sitting there. His clothes seemed to be exuding an incomparably gloomy and cold aura. The words he spat out were so cold that when one heard it, it almost caused one to instantly stiffen from the inside out. No need. The person in charge of the inspection trembled violently and said, The inspection has already been completed." Oh. The voice of the man in the carriage dragged out slightly. He seemed to be faintly displeased as he asked, "Then can this king enter the city now?" Yes. The person nodded repeatedly. He was extremely conflicted in his heart. "I didn't ask you to stop. You stopped on your own accord. You're even displeased. I'm so scared that I'm about to have a heart attack." The person in charge of the inspection respectfully escorted the group of carriages into the city. On the black carriage, the curtains of the carriage were slightly lifted. A man wearing a black robe tightly covered his mouth as he looked tearfully at a certain person who was sitting upright in the carriage with a serious expression. The man in black raised his hand and took off the mask on his face, revealing a handsome face. Wasn't that Xiaoqun? Is it that funny? Xiaoqun gritted his teeth and glared at the person squatting on the ground, covering his mouth and trembling uncontrollably. If that face wasn't Qingji's, who else could it be? However, why was Qinggu squatting on the ground with a tablecloth draped over his body? It was obvious that he was playing the role of a table in the carriage. At this moment his entire body was trembling with laughter. Even the teacup beside him was shaking. Xiao Chen's face also completely darkened under Qing Ji's stifled laughter. Ninth brother. Just now. You were like an opera? Qing Gu was trying his best to hold back his laughter. He was trying so hard to hold back his laughter that tears came out. He looked at Xiao Chen as if he was about to go crazy from laughing. Xiao Chen's expression was extremely cold. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Qing Gu as he said, "Shut up." Qing Gu covered his mouth and rolled on the ground, trembling. The arrival of the Nether Sex people had set off an uproar in Yangzhou City. Countless righteous people had been eyeing the Nether Sect's carriages covetously. However, it seemed as if the Nether Sect didn't want to make any move. They had quietly emptied a restaurant. Jing Yu and Jing Lang were sitting in the restaurant where the participants of the music contest were staying. They were listening to all kinds of voices coming from the table next to them. They heard the people of Nether Sect coming to Yangzhou City in the afternoon. The conversation was like this. Have you heard? Nether Sect's people seem to have come to Yangzhou City. Nether Sect? What Nether Sect? You don't even know the Nether Sect. The Nether Sect that annihilated the Great Celestial Sect 6 years ago. Holy shit! Was it that big evil cult? Why did they come to Yangzhou? It had been 3 to 4 years since they heard any news about the Nether Sect. What's going on? Why did they suddenly appear with such great fanfare? I'm afraid the King of Hell has come to take people's lives. 2 or 3 people were discussing all kinds of mysteriously. They were talking about the Nether Sect as if they were gods. They were incomparably cruel and bloody. They were saying that the Nether Sect's people were not killing people but torturing people. If they didn't cripple people and make them wish they were dead, they wouldn't kill them. Moreover, the Nether Sect didn't just kill one person. They killed people and put them in a terrible situation. It was incomparably terrifying. Haven't you heard? The Nether Sect's King of Hell spoke at the city gate. Chapter 637. What did he say? Who knows what he said? Zhao San, who was originally at the city gate, apparently has a high fever after hearing King Yama's words. I don't know if he can be saved. Damn, that's terrifying. Could it be that your soul has really been taken away by the King of Hell after hearing a few words? Isn't that so? I heard that King Yama's voice is very scary. Ordinary people can't hear it. Jing Yu bit her chopsticks as she listened to the strange discussions around her. Her face turned darker and darker. Why did it feel like they were in a different time and space when they had just left the Imperial City? What kind of nonsense was this? There really was someone who could steal souls. I don't even know where my soul came from. I walked around hell and didn't see King Yama. Why am I still listening to their nonsense? Big brother, what's the dark sect? Jing Yu bit her chopsticks as she looked at Jing Lang in confusion. Is not a thing. Jing Lang's expression was slightly strange as he pursed his lips. Oh. Jing Yu nodded as if she understood. So it's not a thing. Then what is it? It's almost night. Where is Xiao Chen? Jing Yu put down her chopsticks and asked. She turned her head slightly to look at the weather outside the window and frowned. He couldn't have been caught, right? Jing Lang's expression darkened. Even you weren't caught. You actually thought that the 9 emperors would be caught? Jing Yu and Jing Lang returned to their rooms after eating. In order to not be too obvious, Jing Yu and Jing Lang couldn't walk around. Hence, they could only stay in the restaurant. As expected, Qin Ruishan didn't come to look for them. Their whereabouts in the restaurant weren't exposed. Clearly, Qin Ruishan was very trustworthy. Deep into the night, Jing Yu yawned as she lay on the bed drowsily. The candlelight flickered faintly and the room was silent. Jing Yu turned over and was about to fall asleep when a figure suddenly appeared in the room. The silver mask was very dazzling under the candlelight. The man's black clothes outlined his tall and mighty figure. The candlelight flickered slightly as the man carefully walked towards Jing Yu's bed without making any sound. When he saw the woman sprawled on the bed, the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. The man slowly approached Jing Yu. His body was elongated by the candlelight and his shadow covered Jing Yu's body. The man bent down slightly as if he wanted to take a closer look at Jing Yu. However, Jing Yu, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly opened her eyes and sat up. He reached out and grabbed the man's neck. With a flip of his body, he pressed the man onto the bed. His pair of bright green eyes were incomparably enchanting. There was a faint smile on his lips as he looked at the man whose eyes were filled with astonishment. He said indifferently, "Xiao Chen, your concealment skills are getting worse and worse. Madam, your skills are also getting better and better." Xiao Chen's eyes moved slightly when he heard this. He raised his hand and grabbed Jing Yu's waist, pressing Jing Yu's body down. "Tell me, how did you get in?" Jing Yu raised her hand and poked Xiao Chen's face in displeasure. She stared at the mask on Xiao Chen's face and asked rather unhappily, "Why are you wearing a mask in the middle of the night? Are you afraid that someone will covet your beauty?" Chapter 638. Xiao Chen raised his hand and took off the mask. He raised the mask and said, "This mask is my identity." Jing Yu was slightly stunned. She looked at the mask in Xiao Chen's hand. Then, she seemed to have thought of something. She widened her eyes in horror and looked at Xiao Chen as though she had seen a ghost. She said, "You didn't sneak in with the Nether Sex caravan, did you?" "Can't I?" Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and asked calmly. Jing Yu's eyes flashed with a smile. She looked at Xiao Chen and said, "The great Ninth Emperor is actually disguised as a guard of the Jianghu's evil sect. It must have been hard on you." As soon as Jing Yu finished speaking, Xiao Chen's expression darkened. He frowned speechlessly and said, "When did I say I was pretending to be a guard?" "You weren't?" Jing Yu patted Xiao Chen's chest in disdain and said, "If you're not a guard, are you the king of hell? Don't joke around." Jing Yu patted Xiao Chen indifferently. However, she was stunned when she said those words. She lowered her head slightly and looked at the serious and expressionless Xiao Chen. His expression seemed to say, "That's right, I'm the king of hell." "You're really the king of hell of the Nether sect?" Jing Yu sat up in horror and looked at Xiao Chen from head to toe. Her eyes were filled with shock. Xiao Chen also sat up and looked at Jing Yu with interest. He asked, "Can't I?" "Wait." Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chen with a serious expression and said, "You didn't kill the real king of hell, did you? Then you replaced the real king of hell?" Xiao Chen's expression stiffened slightly. He looked at Jing Yu with gritted teeth and said, "This king is the sect master of the Nether sect, the king of hell." This time, it was Jing Yu's turn to be stunned. She narrowed her eyes at Xiao Chen and said, "When did you become the king of hell of the Nether sect? Aren't you the Ninth Emperor's?" "Xiao Chen, how dare you lie to me? With such a good identity, they actually let me act as someone else. Do you know how scared I was? We were almost exposed." Jing Yu angrily rushed forward and grabbed Xiao Chen by the neck. She looked as if she wanted to eat Xiao Chen alive. "Really? I saw that you seemed to be having a lot of fun. Naturally, I couldn't bear to disturb you." Xiao Chen wrapped his arms around Jing Yu. His large hands roamed around Jing Yu's waist. He narrowed his eyes slightly and said indifferently, "Your husband is so considerate. Is there a reward for me, madam?" "Reward your grandpa. Get off me." Jing Yu broke free from Xiao Chen and raised her leg to kick Xiao Chen off the bed. However, she had just raised her leg when Xiao Chen quickly grabbed it. The two of them were in an ambiguous position. "Madam, this king is your husband. Are you trying to kick me off the bed?" Xiao Chen's fingers tightened around Jing Yu's leg. His fingertips moved slightly on Jing Yu's leg. The touch made one shudder, and Jing Yu's body stiffened. She hastily broke free from Xiao Chen's grip. "You scoundrel!" Jing Yu hastily crawled to the innermost part of the bed. She looked at Xiao Chen warily and said, "Don't come over." "But I won't go over." Xiao Chen spread his hands obediently and casually laid down on the bed. He tilted his head slightly to look at Jing Yu and said, "I won't go over." "Madam, you shouldn't come over either. Otherwise, I don't know what I'll do to you." Chapter 639. Jing Yu's expression darkened. She was rendered speechless by this shameless person. Aren't you the king of hell of the Nether sect? Why you here? If someone finds out, we'll be done for. Jing Yu hugged her pillow and glared at Xiao Chen resentfully. Qinggu will take care of it. Xiao Chen closed his eyes slightly as though he was about to fall asleep. Xiao Chen, you still haven't told me how you got involved with the Nether sect? Jing Yu asked as she rested her chin on her hand and looked at Xiao Chen. My mother isn't the daughter of an official. Xiao Chen raised his hand to cover his eyes as he said indifferently, grandfather founded the Nether sect. It was supposed to be mother's backing. However, it was suppressed by several forces. Mother was also implicated because she was the daughter of the evil sect's sect master. Xiao Chen rarely talked about his mother. This was the first time Jing Yu heard about it. She was slightly stunned as she looked at Xiao Chen, who was speaking with his eyes covered. She pursed her lips slightly and moved her body closer to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's body stiffened slightly. He moved his hand away and looked at Jing Yu. Jing Yu blinked her eyes. Her green eyes slowly turned black. Her black eyes shone brightly, reflecting Xiao Chen. The Nether sect was originally planning to disband. If mother didn't say before she died that she owed grandfather and handed the Nether sect to me. Xiao Chen pursed his lips slightly and said, since it's in my hands now, I'll naturally guard it well. A few years ago, Xiao Yi didn't pay much attention to me. However, 5 years ago, he became wary of me. In order to ensure the safety of the Nether sect, I completely separated myself from the Tokyo. Now that I've severed ties with the Nether sect, it doesn't matter whether the Nether sect hides itself or not. Xiao Chen raised his hand and hugged Jing Yu tightly. Then, he picked up the mask and said, this mask was worn by my mother when she was still alive as the sect master of the Nether sect. At that time, my grandfather was being hunted down and his life was hanging by a thread. The Nether sect had no leader. Before I was born, my mother shouldered the heavy burden of the Nether sect alone. It's very precious. Xiao Chen gently rubbed the silver mask. Jing Yu looked up at it. The silver mask didn't look old, but it was still bright. There was a faint blood-red color in the silver pattern. It's my mother's relic. It's also my grandfather's relic. It's also the sect master of the Nether sect. The blood on this mask is my mother's blood. Xiao Chen rubbed the mask and raised his hand to put it aside. He looked at Jing Yu and buried his head in Jing Yu's neck. He didn't say anything. Since your mother gave birth to such a handsome man like you, she must have been a peerless beauty when she was alive. Jing Yu glanced at the mask beside Xiao Chen's pillow. Then she raised her hand and hugged Xiao Chen's back. Xiao Chen moved his head and looked at Jing Yu's serious face. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said, in this king's eyes, other than my mother, no woman in the world can be considered a beauty. However, madam, you're different. So, I'm also a beauty? Jing Yu immediately became excited. Women. Being praised by others would make her happy. Moreover, she was being praised by the person she liked. She immediately became happy. Xiao Chen calmly raised his eyebrows. These two words instantly dampened Jing Yu's happiness. The smile on Jing Yu's face froze. She looked at Xiao Chen with hidden bitterness. Her small eyes amused Xiao Chen. Chapter 640. Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chen with great pleasure. She didn't care that Xiao Chen had asked her to pretend to be someone else yesterday. Xiao Chen rubbed Jing Yu's head and said, it's almost dawn. I'll leave first. As for the music club, we'll act according to the circumstances. Jing Yu was quite relieved. Her man could scare people to death with just a word. What else was there to worry about? She could just leave it all to Xiao Chen. Jing Yu's mentality could be said to be quite good. However, it turned out that men were actually unreliable. Not long after Xiao Chen left, the manager came to look for Jing Yu. The restaurant also became lively. The first day of the music club's audition officially kicked off. The first thing was to draw lots to determine the order of performance and then pass the evaluation. What did you say? You want me to go up and play? Jing Yu looked at the bamboo stick that Jing Lang handed over, dumbfounded. The big name on it was indeed Portman. What kind of name is this? Jing Yu's face completely darkened. She looked at the number on the bamboo stick, number 44. Sure enough, this is the rhythm of going to die? This Western woman is a very powerful drum girl. Her dance is very inspiring and shocking. This is what the introduction in the letter says. Jing Lang looked at Jing Yu's furious face and touched the tip of his nose slightly. How about you go up and dance a few times? Why don't you go up and dance? Jing Yu gritted her teeth and glared at Jing Lang. I'm a man. I'm your brother. Jing Lang said to Jing Yu seriously. If I knew earlier, I would have let you dress up as a woman. I'll dress up as a man. Jing Yu looked at Jing Lang fiercely and said. Jing Lang heard this and suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He was really speechless at his sister's troublesome thoughts. What should we do? Jing Lang lowered his head and pointed to the bamboo stick in Jing Yu's hand and asked. What else can we do? Jing Yu raised her hand and put the bamboo stick into her sleeve. Then, she said indifferently, put it aside for now. Where are the people of Nether sect? Why are you suddenly asking about the Nether sect? Jing Lang was slightly taken aback. Xiao Chen is inside. Jing Yu slightly stuck out her tongue and said, Last night, Xiao Chen came to find me. He is inside the Nether sect. The 9 emperors are in the Nether sect? Jing Lang was startled for a moment. Then he remembered that after the Nether sect entered the city, no one came inside. So, apart from hiding inside, where else could Xiao Chen be? As Jing Lang thought of this, he felt relieved. He pursed his lips and said, The Nether sect seems to be acting as the judge this time. Judge? Jing Yu almost spat out her rice. She looked at Jing Lang in horror and asked, Could it be the person who gave the score? Yes, I just went to inquire about it. It is said that this matter has caused a big disturbance. Jing Lang nodded and said. Jing Yu suddenly felt pain in her cheeks. Xiao Chen actually went to be the judge and she was bitterly thinking about how to perform. They had both sneaked into the city, so why was there such a big gap between them? It was simply too unfair. At this moment, Jing Yu was filled with hidden bitterness. Inside a music hall in Yangzhou City, a wide platform was built. Below the platform were seats. On the second floor, there were seats for the judges. On the seats were the audience and so on. This music hall was specially built for today's music hall. Jing Yu was wearing dark blue clothes today. The diamonds, crystals and other things on her clothes were dazzling. Chapter 641. She had a cloak draped over her body, and the hair ornaments on her hair were also different from the others. At a glance, she was quite eye-catching. She had a strong exotic charm. As Jing Yu walked, the crisp sound of bells on her wrists and ankles rang out. Jing Yu's face was covered. As soon as she arrived at the venue, she instantly became the focus of everyone's attention. On the other hand, Jing Yu was quite uncomfortable. The quality of her clothes was really too low. Those piercing crystal pieces, as well as some other things, kept rubbing against Jing Yu's skin. Jing Yu wished she could tear off these damned clothes. She really didn't know if these clothes were really meant for a human to wear. It was too fucking torturous. It was fine if the cloth was small, but how could the workmanship be so bad? Jing Yu endured the discomfort and sat upright in the contestant's seat, quietly watching the stage. Not long after Jing Yu arrived, more and more people arrived one after another. The venue was already crowded with people. There were scholars in white and green clothes, martial artists in coarse linen clothes, old people and children, and everything else. They were all whispering about today's music conference, wondering if it would be as exciting as the previous years. After the venue was filled with people, Jing Yu finally saw the legendary judges. Both men and women were sitting upright on the second floor. The legendary host went up on stage to give a speech. Jing Yu looked at this scene and felt that it was somewhat comical. It felt like watching a group of people in ancient costumes acting in modern times. It was quite interesting. When the host introduced the judges, Jing Yu looked up but didn't see the figure she wanted to see. She frowned in confusion. Could it be that Xiao Chen wasn't a judge this time? Everyone. Just as Jingyu was thinking about this, she heard the host say, "Today, there is an extraordinary person who will be the judge. I believe everyone present has heard of this person before. He is the sect master of the Dark Church, the King of Hell." Nether sect's King of Hell? King of Hell is actually a judge. Why would the King of Hell appear in person? Is the cult going to turn over a new leaf? The Falling Moon Villa and Heaven-Seeking Pavilion actually didn't stop them. Let's see what that person says. As soon as the MC finished speaking, there was an uproar in the audience. Everyone exclaimed in surprise and a cacophony of voices could be heard. Jingyu's eyes lit up when she heard the MC's words. She silently cursed in her heart. This fellow's entrance was really impressive. Everyone knows that there were some bad rumors about the Nether sect. The supporter said, but now, the Nether sect has the intention to befriend our music hall. They don't have any bad intentions. How can we reject them because of the past? I hope everyone can be more understanding. I understand. Although some of them were doubtful, they still gave him face on the surface. This person had already said so, and you still didn't give him any face. You're so long-winded. I think the next person to be exterminated is very likely to be you. With this precedent, no one dared to say anything. They still had to show enough face. Today, the Nether sect's King of Hell is honored to personally visit our music hall. This is our sincerity. The host seemed to be quite excited. His face was slightly red as he said, I invite the Nether sect's King of Hell to be one of the judges. In the future, the Nether sect will be a friend of our music hall. Chapter 642. Following the host's words, everyone looked up to the second floor. At the corner of the second floor, a man in black slowly stepped out. His tall and slender figure exuded a cold aura from head to toe. His black hair was casually tied up, and a silver mask covered his face. He stood there quietly with his hands clasped behind his back. The entire place fell silent. Everyone held their breaths as they looked at the person who had appeared. The person in black clothes and black hair was like a ghost. King of Hell. The judges stood up one by one and bowed slightly to the person who had suddenly appeared with a courteous smile on their faces. Jingyu sat below and looked at the people who had been so arrogant just a moment ago. She looked at them with disdain and turned to look at Xiao Chen. She sighed inwardly. This person's aura changed too quickly. If she hadn't known beforehand, she would have thought that this was Xiao Chen. Jingyu couldn't tell that this person was Xiao Chen just by looking at him from below. Xiao Chen's appearance wasn't much different from that of the 9 emperors. Other than the mask and the change of hairstyle, there wasn't much difference. Jingyu pursed her lips slightly. She looked at Xiao Chen and nodded casually. Then she walked casually towards the center seat. The judges' eyes twitched when they saw Xiao Chen's actions, but they didn't say anything. Even if someone wanted to say something, they were stopped by the people around them. They seemed to be quite harmonious and smiled as they followed Xiao Chen and the others to their seats. Only then did they take their seats. Jingyu narrowed her eyes and looked up. There was indeed someone following behind Xiao Chen. The person was dressed in black clothes and had a mask on his face. Jingyu didn't even need to think to know that this person was Qinggu. On the other side of Xiao Chen was a man dressed in black. He also had a mask on his face. Who else could be beside Xiao Chen so familiarly other than Xingyi? Xiao Chen actually brought the two of them out so casually. Furthermore, it seemed like they only had a mask to cover their faces. If the mask fell, wouldn't they be done for? Jingyu's mouth twitched. Just as she was about to look away, Xiao Chen's casual gaze swept over. He seemed to have glanced at Jingyu. Jingyu clearly felt displeasure in Xiao Chen's eyes. Xiao Chen was unhappy? Jingyu was slightly stunned. She lowered her head and looked at her clothes. A large part of her chest was exposed, as well as her exposed sleeves. Although she was wearing clothes at this time, he could still see them quite clearly. So this man was really unhappy that she was wearing this kind of clothes? Jingyu's eyes were tinged with a faint smile. She looked up slightly. Xiao Chen had already turned his head away with an arrogant look as if he didn't know anyone. Qingji's eyes turned around and swept across her body so gorgeously. Then, he withdrew his gaze with some disappointment. Obviously, this guy didn't realize that this person was Jingyu. How stupid! Jingyu secretly ridiculed in her heart. She heard the host announce that today's audition had officially begun. Jingyu sat upright and looked at the first person on stage. It was a woman playing the zither. She was quite good-looking, but the sound of the zither she played, she really couldn't bear to listen to it. Chapter 643. If there weren't so many people, Jingyu would have covered her ears. What the hell is she playing? Look at the strength of the woman, it's as if she wants to eat the strings. Finally, the woman left the stage. Jingyu could finally pretend to tidy her hair and rub her ears. It was simply torture. The opening was already so shocking. Jingyu was a little scared. What would happen next? Fortunately, there weren't many weirdos. Most of them were normal. Jingyu listened to the music as she played and ate. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 people had passed. Jingyu didn't know much about music, but she still knew if the music was good or not. Number 29 had sent up a rather important person. What does rather heavyweight mean? Holy shit! Did you see that the stage was already shaking under her footsteps? Jingyu stared dumbfoundedly at the woman who went up on stage with a zither. She swallowed her saliva silently and watched as the woman sat down. Immediately, the small chair that was perfectly fine collapsed. Instantly, there was a burst of laughter in the venue. Ha! Such a fat woman. Ha! Why are you still playing the zither like this? What an insult to the zither! There was a lot of mocking laughter below. Everyone was talking one after another. The woman's face turned red, but she didn't say anything. The host couldn't stand it anymore. He coughed and said to bring a sturdy chair over. No need, I don't need to sit. Who would have thought that the woman didn't care and waved her hand and said, if it breaks again, how will the people below sit? The woman was extremely fat. She sat on the stage with difficulty. The zither in her hand was placed on her lap. Because her body was too fat, her cheeks were full of meat, making it difficult for people to see her eyes clearly. The woman took a deep breath. No one knew if her eyes were closed or open, but she slowly raised her hand and placed her fat fingers on the strings of the zither. Under the mocking gazes of the crowd, she slowly plucked the strings. Moving sounds flew out from the strings of the guqin. The woman's fingers danced. It could be said that it was very ugly, but her skillful skills and smooth notes made everyone present widen their eyes in disbelief. They all stared at the woman on the stage who was playing the guqin without moving at all. The sound of the guqin lingered in the hall. Everyone was attracted by the sound of the guqin. They were either shaking their heads or swaying their heads in intoxication. The sound of the guqin was sometimes ethereal and quiet. Sometimes it was like flying on the battlefield. Sometimes it was arrogant and domineering. Sometimes it was gentle and moving. Until the end of the song, no one was able to come back to their senses. The woman seemed to have slowly let out a sigh of relief and smiled happily. Her chubby face also trembled because of her smile. Some of the men below shook their heads in pity. Such skills, but she looks. What a pity! When Jingyu heard this, she turned her head slightly. She saw that many people seemed to have the same expression. Her heart trembled slightly. Looking at the woman who stood up with difficulty, she pursed her lips and frowned. This was the legendary saying of judging a person by their appearance. Wasn't she just a little fat? Very good. Just as everyone was talking, King of Hell Xiao Chen, who had been sitting quietly on the second floor and hadn't made a sound, suddenly spat out 2 words. It really shocked the judges. Chapter 644. Cough cough. This zither skill is not bad, but I think it's still lacking. A person on Xiao Chen's left said. Lacking? Xiao Chen's deep eyes looked indifferently at the person on his left and said coldly, why don't we invite Senior Ling Feng to play a song and see if this zither skill is lacking? That person's face turned slightly ugly when he heard this. Everyone else also coughed slightly and turned their heads away without saying a word. The woman on the lower seat smiled faintly at this moment. Her actions were indeed very ladylike, but when she did it, it was so strange that people couldn't help but laugh. Thank you, King of Hell, for your compliment. I know I'm not good-looking, but I'm here to ask, in this world, do you distinguish between sounds and people? The woman lifted her chin slightly and looked at the crowd on the second floor with a scorching gaze. She looked very stubborn. This lady also wants to ask, do you people in this music house distinguish between sounds and people? Right at this moment, Qin Ruishan suddenly stood up. She raised her head slightly to look at the person sitting on the second floor and asked coldly. That person's cheeks turned slightly red. Hao Yu, who was not far away, saw Qin Ruishan standing up for that woman and stood up to reprimand her righteously. Hao Yu's reputation was pretty big. When Hao Yu stood up, more and more people started to speak up. Xiao Chun sat indifferently on his seat and looked at the person beside him who was embarrassed because of the discussion. Now that things had come to this point, how could he let the woman leave? Jing Yu looked sideways at the woman who silently returned to her seat. Her expression didn't change much. She wasn't unhappy because she couldn't enter the finals, nor was she happy because she could continue to compete. Jing Yu raised her eyebrows with interest as she sized up this woman. That fat on her body was indeed a little frightening. However, how could a person be so fat? It was really hard to understand. The competition was still going on, and when Jing Yu had nothing to do, it was finally her turn. Jing Yu's lips curled up slightly. Under the call of the host, she slowly stepped onto the stage. On the stage, drums were brought up one after another. Everyone's eyes lit up. It wasn't that they hadn't seen drums before, and they had seen many drummers, but dancing on the drums? This was the first time they had seen it. Everyone stretched their necks and looked at the stage, anticipating Jing Yu's next move. However, Jing Yu acted as if she was serious and walked around the stage. Looking at the 3 connected drums, her face turned green. How the hell was she supposed to dance? Jing Yu raised her head slightly to look at the judges on the second floor. She stared at Xiao Chen and sent him a clear message, "Help me." However, Xiao Chen didn't even bat an eyelid. He just looked at Jing Yu with a faint smile. Was this guy planning to watch her make a fool of herself before making his move? Jing Yu's face darkened. She looked at the drums and then at the sea of people below. She thought to herself, I don't care anymore. Since I'm already at this stage, I can only brace myself and do it. Wasn't it just drumming? Who didn't know how to do it? Jing Yu rolled her eyes and raised her hand to call the MC over. After whispering a few words, the MC nodded and turned around to give instructions. Under the puzzled gazes of everyone, the MC came over with a red ribbon and 2 drumsticks. Chapter 645. Jing Yu tied the drumsticks to the 2 ends of the red silk and pulled them tight. Then, she nodded slightly to the host, indicating that she was about to begin. Only then did the MC step back with a smile, leaving the stage to Jing Yu. As the clear sound of the beginning rang out, Jing Yu squatted down slightly and adjusted her aura. Under everyone's astonished gazes, Jing Yu suddenly flipped over and landed in the center of the drum. An extremely oppressive drum sound rang out. Jing Yu did not stop after landing. She flipped over twice and landed on the other 2 drums. After 3 dull drum beats, the red silk in Jing Yu's hand flew up, and the drumsticks in her hand flew towards the 2 large drums with incomparable precision. The drum beats did not stop, sometimes high and sometimes low. Jing Yu flipped in the air quickly and heavily. Her footsteps on the drums sounded again and again. The people below were dazzled. Jing Yu's skillful movements, soft body, and precise technique were all admirable. As for the drum beats, what? Drum beats? They really did not understand what kind of charm it had. Jing Yu did not know what she was dancing for. In her heart, she only thought that it would be fine as long as the drum beats did not stop. At the end of the dance, Jing Yu was already exhausted. The drumsticks in her hand fell fiercely. With a loud bang, the drum beats in the hall gradually stopped. Oh my God! This dance was simply more tiring than killing people. Jing Yu slowly stood up. Looking at the dazed crowd below, she suddenly felt her face turn red. It's over. This time, I've lost a lot of face. Fortunately, I'm wearing a veil, so I'm not the one who has lost face. Let's just let it pass like this. The people on the second floor fell into silence. They seemed to be conflicted about whether Jing Yu's dance was good or not. The people below also fell into an intense debate. Those who were in favor of Jing Yu's performance were all martial artists. Those who objected were all scholars and musicians. They said that Jing Yu's drums were messy and had no sense of beauty at all. The two parties were at a stalemate. While everyone was discussing, the King of Hell, who had been sitting silently on the second floor, suddenly stood up. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the cold and sinister King of Hell from the Nether sect leaped down from the second floor and landed in front of Jing Yu. Jing Yu's body stiffened. She looked at Xiao Chen, who suddenly flew down in confusion. She had no idea what this guy wanted to do. "You very good." A certain pretentious King of Hell said these three words to Jing Yu in a rather domineering manner. Jing Yu immediately felt a strange feeling in her heart, but on the surface, she displayed a pleasantly surprised expression. She looked somewhat nervously at Xiao Chen and said, "King of Hell? Xiao Chen, what the hell are you doing?" The position of the wife of the Nether sect's sect leader has been vacant for a long time. This king thinks that you are very suitable. Xiao Chen strode towards Jing Yu. Under everyone's horrified gaze, Xiao Chen calmly spat out these words. He raised his hand slightly and lifted Jing Yu's chin as he spoke calmly, "Don't be so stupid." Thunder from a clear sky. At this moment, everyone in the venue fell into a daze because of Xiao Chen's earth-shattering words. What happened to the concert? Why did the high and mighty King of Hell hook up with a woman in the blink of an eye? Chapter 646. There's something wrong with this scene. Jing Yu widened her eyes in shock. When she saw the teasing look in Xiao Chen's eyes, her face instantly darkened. Does this guy want to see me act bashful in front of so many people? Then, after doing something, he will start making fun of me? But, you're dreaming. Jing Yu's lips curled into a faint smile. She curved her eyes and moved closer to Xiao Chen. Under everyone's gaze, Jing Yu actually reached out her slender hand and lifted Xiao Chen's chin. She said indifferently, "King of Hell, if you want me to be your wife, what kind of sincerity can you show me? Do you have the wealth? Or the power? Or perhaps, your beauty?" Jing Yu's hand stroked Xiao Chen's silver mask with interest. This shocking action caused everyone to break out in cold sweat. What's going on now? King of Hell failed to tease someone and was the one being teased instead? Everyone stared with their eyes wide open, waiting for King Yanluo's next reaction. They still remembered a rumor that a woman who touched King Yanluo's clothes was chopped into pieces by King Yanluo in the next second. What about now? That small hand was brazenly touching his face. Everyone could almost see the tragedy that was about to happen. King of Hell's motionless figure seemed to bear the brunt of this storm. Xing Yi and Qinggu, who were standing above, were completely stunned when they saw Xiao Chen doing this to a woman they didn't know. Jing Yu's figure flashed across their minds. The first thought that came to their minds was, "I will never tell Madam." However, when they saw the woman who was being teased so brazenly teased Xiao Chen while Xiao Chen stood there and allowed her to tease him, they suddenly realized that the woman must be Jing Yu. Was there any other woman in the world who dared to act like Jing Yu? Only their madam, after being teased, would actually tease back. Xing Yi was speechless. Looking at the two on the stage, they were indeed a perfect match. Xiao Chen seemed to be taken aback by Jing Yu taking the initiative to tease him. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Jing Yu's bright eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He raised his hand slightly and pulled Jing Yu into his embrace in front of millions of people. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said indifferently, "This king has good stamina. I guarantee that he can satisfy Madam." Good stamina? Jing Yu stared at Xiao Chen in shock. Those devilish eyes, that curled up corner of his mouth, and those words that made people wonder if they were real, caused the entire crowd to fall into a dead silence. Everyone present had internal energy. Xiao Chen's voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. When he said that, the women present immediately blushed. The men's eyes revealed ambiguous expressions, and their hearts were full of praise for Xiao Chen. "Brother, I give you full marks for your flirting skills." Jing Yu's face was almost completely red. She gritted her teeth and looked at Xiao Chen. Did this guy forget his moral integrity? You want to subdue this young lady so easily? That's impossible. Jing Yu's lips curled up slightly. She raised her arm and wrapped it around Xiao Chen's neck under countless gazes. She said, "Who knows if you just talk and don't do anything? King of Hell, your waist is really that good?" Chapter 647. Since you've said so, then this king? I'll let you do it. Xiao Chen's eyes narrowed. Jing Yu's provocative words had clearly provoked Xiao Chen. He tightened his grip on Jing Yu's waist. The corners of his lips curled up as he wrapped his arms around Jing Yu and leaped into the air. This king will be leaving first. This music hall is really good. Ha! Xiao Chen's arrogant laughter rang out. He actually carried Jing Yu away in front of everyone, leaving behind a group of dumbfounded humans who were unable to regain their senses for a long time. The drums were still there, but there was no one left. The host was also dumbfounded. After being a host for so many years, this was the first time he saw a judge come down to look for the madam. Moreover, he flirted with her in front of everyone and then took her away. So, this king of hell really went to prove that he had good stamina? What the hell was this? The sect leader of the Nether sect had found the madam. Was there anything more terrifying than this? The music hall was in an uproar. Meanwhile, in a certain restaurant, which had been completely booked by the people of the Nether sect, Xiao Chen brought Jing Yu here. When they entered the room, before Jing Yu could react, Xiao Chen pressed her down on a rather large bed. "Madam, now we can test it out properly," Xiao Chen said with a faint smile as he looked at Jing Yu. "Hey, there's no one here now," Jing Yu said in a fluster as she pushed against Xiao Chen's chest. "Don't tell me you want someone to watch you do it?" Xiao Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. His words instantly made Jing Yu vomit blood. "When did I say that? Isn't it an act? Don't come over." Jing Yu raised her hands to push Xiao Chen away. However, Xiao Chen didn't budge at all. He frowned and grabbed Jing Yu's hands and placed them above Jing Yu's head. The corners of his lips curled up slightly as he said indifferently, "Madam, haven't you heard of acting becoming reality? Who wants to do it with you? Let go of me." Jing Yu was furious. She struggled with all her might, but her hands and feet were restrained by Xiao Chen. In the end, she began to bite him fiercely. "I'll bite you, you big bastard. Let go of me. Don't take off my clothes." The room was a mess's room. "Oh, so you like to do it with your clothes on? Ah! Xiao Chen, you bastard. Beast. Don't bite." The sun was shining brightly outside, but it was raging inside. Some of the secret guards were standing outside Xiao Chen's room. When they heard the commotion inside, they coughed awkwardly and stared blankly at the wooden stake without changing their expressions. They chanted the clear heart incantation 10,000 times in their hearts. "Master, can you not be so ferocious?" Xiao Chen and Jing Yu's legendary act became reality. It lasted until nightfall before they finally stopped. At this time, Jing Yu was soaking in the bathtub and rubbing her sore body. She felt wronged. This was the price she had to pay for taking liberties with the 9 emperors. Jing Yu was in tears. When the sky darkened, Jing Yu changed into a black outfit. Xiao Chen also came in from outside. When he saw Jing Yu fixing her hair, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. He went forward and took the hairpin in Jing Yu's hand and said, "Everything is ready. We'll cross the sea tonight and go to Meizhou." Jing Yu responded. Her eyes were full of smiles as she watched Xiao Chen clumsily fix her hair into a nondescript bun. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.